Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. I am Mia and I will be leading you for an hour. I hope you can stay tuned. I have lots of great content for you that I hope will really serve you this week, and you can take lots of action with it and really make an impact in your kitchen this week. So, the webinar is titled Simply Create a Stress-Free Kitchen. And I created this because I know that whether you're a working mom or a stay at home mom, no matter what you do during the day, you spend a lot of time in your kitchen creating meals for your kids. And a lot of times that can weigh us down. And I think that I have created the tools just through experimenting over the course of 7 years to really help you love every minute of that time that you're in the kitchen, which just makes life more enjoyable. And who does not want to enjoy life? So, if you're a social media person, always use the hashtag Plan Simple Meals. We would love to see what you're up to. We would love to answer your questions. We would love to see pictures of your meals. Whatever it is, we can see all that when you use that hashtag. And we are mostly on Twitter and Instagram. All right, how to get the most out of our time together. So, as you know, when you're streaming videos, sometimes it can pause and sound weird, but we've recorded this in the best way possible. So, if you're having any glitches, just turn off everything in the background, including email and Skype and iTunes and any extra big programs that you have on your computer. And then for your own attention benefit, if you silence your phone, close your door, get your kids taken care of, and really give yourself this time to discover some new strategies that I'm hoping can really serve you. So if you stay for the webinar live, I have a treat for you. Just email info@plansimplemeals.com and in the subject, put webinar, and we'll send you back some tools that will help you in your week, especially if you've listened to the whole webinar. All right, so here's the thing. You are in the right place if you're a busy mom who wants to raise healthy kids. I find that not everybody wants healthy kids. So if you don't want healthy kids, this is going to waste your time. And maybe part of the reason you have that incentive is that you want your waistline in better shape, or you never learned how to cook, and so you're certainly not sure how to cook healthy. And all the meals that you make as chef, and I put that in quotes because I know you didn't sign up for that job, they can seriously stress you out. You're also in the right place if you just want to change the food that you eat. Maybe it's because you have an allergy, a doctor's diagnosed either you or your child with a food allergy and you're a little bit overwhelmed by that, or celiac and they're asking you to take out gluten. All of the stuff I talk about, just as a side note, is gluten-free and dairy-free. So it serves those purposes. My recipes a lot of times have nuts, but a lot of the stuff we talk around the recipes, I really feel serves anybody, no matter what your issue is. Maybe your child is acting out at school. Yes, that can be solved by meals and food. Or maybe you know that your family eats too much processed food and you're just looking for a way out. You're also in the right place if you already know about everything I just said. You already know how to eat well. But parenting has really thrown a few wrinkles either in your habits or in your ability to pass those on. So I've even spoken to really well known wellness experts who know what to do. But when a baby comes along, we get tripped up. There's a lot of emotional stuff that happens with all this food stuff. So I'm hoping that the solutions you get today will really surprise you and maybe even delight you. And all of this that we're talking about, you've showed up for this webinar, which takes an hour. We can literally map it to time. And some of the things I'll ask you to do will take a little extra time, but I promise you that it's fun work if you let it be, and that the rewards are just huge. The rewards are really long term. So, what is your hitch? What's holding you back from your healthiest and best life? Is it the issue of time? Maybe you just feel every day like there is not possibly enough time to get everything you need done. You wear so many hats. You're the mom, the wife, the friend, the daughter, the driver, the homework helper, the shrink, the sibling referee, the house cleaner, the clothes washer, the shopper, the gardener, the money earner, just to name a few. And then added on top of that, you have to be a chef. And as we know, some people make a profession out of this, and it's just something that we as moms or parents have to fit in. Maybe it's that you never learned how to cook, so it's stressful. And by the way, I get all of these, but I really get this. And you're overwhelmed by all the various definitions of healthy and which one you should follow, and all these different diets floating out there that are supposed to serve you and your family. And really just grabbing something from the frozen food aisle or whipping out that box of mac and cheese just feels so much easier. Or maybe it's just that your kids only like a few foods. So why spend the extra effort and money just to get lots of complaining, right? We've spent all this time, some extra money to be healthy, and then it's that time of day when we're all tired at dinner and all we get is complaints. It's exhausting. So here's how I want to start off slash transition from those three ideas. And it's with a quote from somebody who I hugely respect, Dr. Joel Furman, from his book Disease Proof Your Child. And this is what he says. As parents, we want what is best for our children. We would never intentionally harm them. In fact, we make sure to get them the best possible care, read to them, play with them, and ensure their safety at home, at school, and at play. But when it comes to feeding them, somehow we don't know what's best. Our kids seem finicky and eat nothing but cheese or pasta or chicken fingers or milk and cookies, and we let them. At the same time, we notice they are frequently ill. They suffer from recurring ear infections, runny noses, stomach aches, and headaches. We assume, because we also see it happening with friends and family, that it is par for course when bringing up children. It doesn't have to be so. So, to me, this just really says it all, right? We take for granted, we underestimate the power of food, and there's so many emotional things associated to it. Like, who hasn't had a moment? I've had many moments where all I've wanted to do is, give a child milk and cookies. um, and the question, I guess, becomes, is it worth it? So here's the deal, we all start somewhere. We're all at a different place on this path. And so I just want to share a little bit about where I started and why I'm so passionate about this and why I'm here today. So for me, it all started with losing the weight, and it was just a mere 7 years ago. And here's the thing, at the time, I had already had my three kids, but they were way younger. The baby was almost one, and then I had a 3 year old and a 5 year old. And I ran a pretty successful graphic design company, and I had an amazing husband, and I was freaking exhausted. And one of the things that had happened to me over the course of the 7 years prior and getting pregnant and starting this company and all those things is that I had gained close to 85 pounds that really I had gained during pregnancy, but I hadn't set myself up for success during pregnancy, and I couldn't lose it, and the nursing thing didn't help. And that was the one thing that I could see that could, maybe that seemed most tangible at this moment in my life when I was just feeling a little bit like, oh my God, like how did I become this mother of three kids and how did I end up here and what the hell am I doing? And so I set out to lose the weight. And I wasn't sure how to do that. I had definitely been on diets in my life. I feel like I definitely was one of those persons who had, tried things and gone up and down, but I had always followed, somebody's rules. So sometime in that time frame, I landed at a yoga class. I figured like there was a time when I was really healthy and really happy. And at that time, I was moving my body a lot, exercising a lot, and I had found yoga, and I just hadn't been in a while. So one Saturday morning, I set off, and the person who was leading the class was the owner of the studio. And while she was giving the class, I don't know, I just felt this like pull, like I needed to meet this woman. And I just have to tell you guys, that's not my personality. I'm not outgoing. I'm pretty shy. I usually like zoom into things and zoom out. I know you don't think that because I'm here, but that's the truth. And I told her a little bit of my story. I sort of poured it all out, and like unlike I had really even done to myself yet. And she said, I have the perfect solution for you. Come to my house tomorrow. So I was like, whatever. So I went to her house, and explained to me how much impact food could have on my body. It was a thought I had never even really thought before. And she sort of laid out what her recommendation was for what I should eat. And it was based on the fact that she herself was raw vegan and she thought this had changed her life. And at that moment, I was able to I would have listened to anybody. I really would have done anything. I probably would have gone on the steak diet if that's who I had run into. But instead, I ran into this woman. And I just jumped right in. And the funny thing about it is that she wasn't a cook. She was not a chef. She just had these foods that she thought would make me thrive. So she gave me these, I don't know, maybe 7 to 8 recipes. They were easy enough. A lot of them were made in the blender or the Cuisinart or by throwing together some salads. And that was just enough for me because at that moment I was pretty scared of the grocery store and making food from scratch. I was not a cook. I literally, food was like plain pasta. I didn't know how to scramble an egg. If you told me to buy kale at the supermarket, I'm not sure I would have known what to do. But with these 9 recipes, that felt manageable enough that I could go out, I could figure out what kale was. I knew what romaine lettuce was. She was asking me to add in sea vegetables and start juicing. So I did all these things. And I did it every day for 3 months. And the weight started melting off, but what happened on top of that was just astronomical. Stuff I couldn't even have imagined. Allergies that I had been taking medicine for years went away. A period which I had always taken medicine to get came without medicine. My skin was glowing. Any skin stuff I had on, like rash type stuff I had going on, went away, and my energy was over the top. And here's the deal: the day before I went to this yoga class, I had had 6 cups of coffee and I had landed home at dinner exhausted. And that was really my tipping point. That was my moment where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I spending all this money at Starbucks and why is it not helping me? And so it had so many effects. So after 3 months, I that was like my first doable thing was these 9 recipes, and it had such an effect on me. And that's what I could handle in that time. I fully admit during that time my kids probably still ate a lot of macaroni and cheese. And then I needed to broaden. So I found a cooking class that could teach me some of those, use those principles and teach me more things, teach me more about food. I was at that point needed to eat something different than those 9 recipes. And it sort of went on like that, one thing at a time. And eventually, a few months in, I realized that my daughter was really suffering. This was her about the age she was suffering. Or, when we were just cleaning it up, and she was grumpy a lot. She had the worst eczema. It was sort of all over her body in the traditional form, and then her hands were just really swollen and hurty. And she was a feisty one. She'll always be a feisty one. That's how she was born. That's part of her spirit. But something was off. Something was just a little too feisty. She wasn't able to hear. I could just tell she wasn't feeling well. And she was young enough where she couldn't, I don't think, tell me that her tummy hurt. All I saw was this outside thing. And it ended up she was very constipated as well. So we just decided to start with all this stuff I learned. I wasn't going to make her raw vegan, but I just started with, a few of the things that I had realized I took out and had really helped. So I started with dairy. And I kid you not, 2 days later, I did it on a weekend. So Monday at school, the teacher called after school and was like, "What did you do?" She's listening. Like, what happened? She's sitting when I'm asking her to sit, and she's listening to the puppet shows, and what happened? And I said, I took out dairy. And about a week later, the eczema started just fading away. The hands actually went away really fast, and then the body started healing over the course of the 2 weeks. And it was amazing. So we kept her dairy free for a while. And then what happened was she started vomiting at school. This was the next year. And of course, they would send her home because they thought she was sick, and that's what a school should do. But I had this glitch. She wasn't, like, I knew she wasn't sick. I knew there was something else going on. So that's when we started playing around with gluten, and I realized how messed up, we started doing x-rays, and I actually sought some health professionals help and realized she was just all stuffed up in her tummy, and the gluten needed to go. And the funny thing is that even though I had been on this path and had not had dairy or gluten by this point, probably in a year, it felt really hard. And I think it was more the emotional part. It just felt like, what kid, like, this kid is never going to go to a birthday party and be able to experience it the same way. So I just wanted to let you know that I totally don't feel that way anymore because she is thriving. But I've definitely had those thoughts along the way, lots of them. So eventually, after we brought her along for the ride, um, which looked a little bit different than my path, but part of what we'll get into is how this sort of works for everybody. Um, so then I decided, if we were thriving, if we were doing so amazing, I had to bring the rest of the family along for the ride. And I show a roller coaster because that part was a little bit harder. I fully admit that if you just want to live a healthier life and there's not something like big pulling you forward, which I now know you can create, um, there can be a lot of ups and downs because this world is stacked against us, especially, if you live in the US. Really, I've heard also in Europe and Australia and Canada, the odds are stacked against us. There's a lot of processed foods out there. There's a lot of gluten. There's a lot of meats that we don't know where they come from. There's dairy and soy and everything. There's a lot of ways to get not organic food. There's just a lot of things that are being thrown at us. We live in a fast food nation. So I did figure it out though, and I can say 7 years later, I don't regret any hard part about it because it's amazing where we are today. It's amazing to see my kids solve their problems with food. It's amazing to see them thrive, and it's amazing for them just to have this medicine right at their fingertips that I had no idea it had this power, just a short time ago. And so the secret for me really was to follow a system and then find my rhythm in that system. So figure out how to make that fit into my life and to really find fun in the process. Because if something's not fun and it doesn't fit into your life, it feels more like that roller coaster, right? But if we do things that really, have an approach, fit into our lives, and that we have fun doing them, then the day by day really feels fun, and it feels less like a roller coaster. It feels like a ride we could be on for a lot longer. So I have created this system to really help you eat well every day. And for me, it's really about 5 steps. You really have to start with the end in mind, and then you have to set the foundation for a year, for your best year ever. And you do this every year because every year gets better and better and better. And then you have a monthly ritual that moves you toward those two things. And then you create a weekly plan that moves you toward those three things. And then you really make your days doable so that they don't feel stressful, so that they can be fun. But all the time that you're doing that, it's mapping back to this bigger picture that you've created. Because really, human willpower, if there's a pink colored cupcake, we want it. And I don't want to take that out of the equation. I don't want to tell you that you'll never want that again because that's not fair. And not that you should never have that again either. But so we really want the days to feel doable as we attain our most healthy selves, which is a journey. It's definitely a journey. So I'm going to tackle 1 and 2 just for this webinar, which I'm trying to keep short. I'm going to tackle it with one point, and that is that we really need to have a strong why. And I'm sharing this because I'm going to share with you first in a second an exercise that really focuses on that bigger picture why, and then one that focuses on your best year yet. So it's important to always keep this in mind. So an exercise for your big picture, for that thing that really pulls you forward over the long term, and really these healthy changes, you might notice things the next day. You know, your skin might be cleaned up, your energy might be higher, and you may lose weight. But the benefits of this lifestyle are much longer term. They're much more about what you're doing now really affecting who you are 7 years from now, and really affecting, like, that you don't have the disease that you might have had if you had McDonald's every single day for the 7 years prior. You're really changing your future in a way that we used to think was like genetics, we now know is in our control. So here's the exercise. I want you to take time after this webinar, or you could pause it if you're listening to the recording, and take the time to map out what your life is like 10 years from now. So this sounds kind of silly, but I really want you to imagine it. And here's why. It's going to take you out of the moment. So right now you might be concerned that your toddler is throwing all the food and not eating it, or that your baby is not, nursing correctly, and that you're really, you know, haven't lost the baby weight yet, or that your 10-year-old is just like going through this phase and complaining and craving all the wrong things, and you're concerned. These are all phases, which we know, especially if you've got, if you have the baby and it's your first, you might not know this yet, but if you have a 10-year-old or you have multiple children, you know that each phase is very different. But when we're in each phase with each child, we kind of lose track of that in the moment. So, the point of the 10-year plan is to really pull you out of that and pull you toward your bigger picture. And I want you to think of things like, where do you live? How do you spend your days? How are you exercising? How are you working? Where are your kids? If your kids are 10, in 10 years they're 20, they're not with you. So imagine that. How is your life? How is your marriage? Where are your friends? How are you congregating? What are your kids like? What are they doing? Are they healthy? All those things. I want you to imagine what it's like in 10 years. It's a fascinating exercise, so have fun. So take action and just set a timer. This doesn't have to take you days. Just spend 30 minutes and write it out. Just jot it all out. Let it just be a stream of consciousness. Don't think about how it should be or like the trajectory you're on with your work. Think about what would really feel good. Because a lot of the times when we think about our work and our career and where our kids are and colleges, we're thinking of how we think it should be, but we're letting fall through the cracks all the things like how we should feel, where we are, what it looks like, what it smells like, all that kind of stuff. We forget about that because we're living outside of that. Then I want you to choose one thing that really sticks out from this exercise. And I want you to create your current why about that. So your why is really like your goal for this, I would say for this year, even though you might make it through it in faster than a year. But it's really your why, your overarching reason for doing this. So for me, it very much started off about the weight. And I could imagine myself in 10 years, and I wanted to be fit, and I wanted to be skinny, and I didn't want to have turned into a old lady round ball. Like, all this is very important to me. I wanted to have energy, and I want to have grandkids someday, and I want to be that young grandma, not that old grandma. And all of this, is really important to think about now and create habits now that will serve you then. And so I was thinking about all these things, and so I really started, my first why was about my weight, and that, I want to be this way um, this year. I want to make this happen this year. I want to create these habits this year. I want to feel energy and feel good in my clothes and feel good serving my clients and all that kind of stuff. That was my first why. It actually took less than a year. So then I had to reevaluate and figure out, really what was my why. And so then, as I shared, it became about my daughter, and then it became about my family. And now it's actually shifted more into serving you, because all those things really are part of me now, which is So cool. So choose that one thing and make it your current why. And I just want you to hear this. Just because you're choosing one thing for this year doesn't mean the other things won't happen. But I want you to pick that one thing again, not from a place of I should go to school at Harvard or Yale or, I should have this job, but really from that your gut. If I had have thought about my first why too much, I would have felt like a selfish bitchy mom because what mom would go off and be raw vegan and still feed her kids crappy pasta, right? So I really want you to let your heart lead on this one because you'll make a much better choice and you need a really strong why. It could even make you cry to really pull you forward as you're making this change. So here's a tip that I want you to really take into consideration for the rest of the webinar. That we're always, those two things we just talked about are big pictures and they can scare you. They can be really big. But one of the things that happens when you're around me long enough is that you really spend time taking one doable step at a time. So for me, if I had said I want to lose weight and want my whole family to be healthy, I would have just spun my wheels and I would have stayed fat and my family would have not been healthy. But I really figured out what I could do. And all I could do was those 9 recipes. And I did let my kids try them and all that stuff. It's not like I was like totally shielding them, but that was my focus. Actually, my 1 year old very quickly started drinking green juice with me, but I wasn't focused on her drinking green juice. I was really focused on me at that time. And then it changes. So let your focus be on what's doable to you at this time. And for me, it was those 9 recipes. For you, it could be about a food group. It could be about, just exercising once a week. It could be about family dinner if you're at that point. There's all sorts of ways it could do, but it has to be doable to you. So, as we're going through this, I really want you to be conscious of that because I'm going to constantly ask you for what your next doable change is. But I want you to make sure that you're not trying to achieve something too high that you won't be able to attain but still stretch yourself a little if that makes sense. So the idea that I would cook at all was kind of an overwhelming daunting thing, but I knew I could learn 9 recipes. Does that make sense? All right. So it says 2, but it should say 3, right? So it's kind of the second thought. um, so I want you to reset at the start of each month. And you're going to reset at the start of each month, both emotionally and practically. So the emotional side of it would be really, reading your why, making sure that's still what sits with you. So, if it started off with the weight and you're at the month where, you're really feeling good about your food and you've lost some of the weight, then maybe you're moving on to some other part of it. So really checking in or maybe you're deciding to persevere. Things can look the same from month to month. That's totally fine. So you're going to check in emotionally and you're also going to check in practically. And the strategy that I'm going to give you in this webinar is going to be on the practically side of it. So in eating better, the foods that I ask people to consider are processed foods and how those are part of your life right now. Gluten, dairy, eggs, meat, caffeine, alcohol, and sugar. So these are things that our bodies can be sensitive to, that maybe they weren't meant to have quite as much as we have right now of. And so I want us to start, really considering how these foods play a role in our life. And an easy something that we can do monthly is really check in to how our why and really could benefit from one of these changes. So if our why is to lose weight, then maybe we're trying a month with no gluten and dairy. And so the really practical thing you could do in a month is to really figure out how that's getting into your household or how it's making its way into your life. So is it making its way into your life because you're eating takeout all the time and it's just sneaking in? And if yes, then your focus for the month would be to eat home more. But what I find a lot with people with kids is that sometimes it's sneaking in just by us. So we've just like been in the supermarket and had a crying kid and bought those cookies that they were asking for. Or maybe it wasn't even that they were crying, maybe that they were there alone and we just decided to buy Oreos because they're organic and, in the healthy section of the grocery store. Whatever it is, that's a processed food, even though it's organic. Um, and maybe that's not serving us, and then we end up fighting with our kids about whether they can have the cookie or not. So each month I want you to consider, what your fridge looks like and what your pantry looks like. And one of the things you'll get if you email me is my pantry list, just so you can see what it is. And here's an exercise. So I have so many exercises and ideas when it comes to just this even one idea, but this is just a specific exercise that you can take action on today. So I want you to create a food buying plan. And this is really about what you can get from where. And I find that this really helps if that's part of your problem, that food is making its way into your house that just doesn't serve you or doesn't serve your kids. So it's hard to have that willpower in the grocery store if, for example, you're hungry or you're in a rush, so you're totally overwhelmed and you just, your instinct is to grab things already made. Or, you have a child who's complaining and is saying, I want that cereal or I want those cookies, whatever it is. And so you grab it. And so if you have a plan, then usually you can make better choices in those moments. So what I would do is just take out a piece of paper and just start to write down. You could even do it by looking currently what's in your fridge and what's in your pantry and divide it into sort of, fruits and vegetables, sweets and snacks, whatever the different kinds of foods you have are, and sort of start to figure out where they're coming from. And this will also can help you if you're overwhelmed by the cost. And so just start, remember that idea of one doable change. So take some time just to map out what you have and then just commit to changing one thing this month. And here are two ideas for you. So you might, if you, this could come up from two different ways. It could be that you have a lot of processed snacks like crackers and cookies and whatnot in your pantry and you're not liking that. So your one doable change for the month could be to get more sort of raw ingredients in your pantry. So nuts and seeds and dried fruits. And you can get recipes on our website of how to use these to make smoothies and homemade sweet treats. And so that might be your motivation and what you do. You might find that you can order them online cheaper than you can get at your store. I love the company, or I order from the company Tierra Farms. I don't really know them. I have no relationship with them, but I love them for seeds and nuts and dates and all sorts of dried fruit. And I find that it is cheaper than the bulk organic aisle of my grocery store if I do that once a month. So it could be that you get that far this month. It could be that you already have a lot of nuts and seeds and you do find a source online because that's going to save you money. So that's sort of your motivation behind this change. If the pantry is not a problem or that's not the thing you're tackling this month, it's a great time, especially if you live in the northern hemisphere, sort of north like I do. I live in New England, but really I think probably anywhere from DC and San Francisco up. It's time for sure by March to figure out if there is a farm share that you can invest in this summer. And that's a great way to get fresh fruits and vegetables in your kitchen at a reasonable price. So that could be your thing for the month, is really investigating and seeing how you can make some sort of farm share happen. There's also delivery services you could look for fruits and vegetables, or just even putting farmers markets in your calendar. So when you know that they're going to open in the season, you just put those key ones in the calendar with a reminder so you know that that's where you're going for groceries that week. So take action, figure out one food group that you want to do better with, and how you can make it less stressful once a month. What is one thing you can do? Whether it be where you get it from, getting it all at once, whatever it is, figure out how you can make less stressful and go for it. All right, see, my numbers are off. Now I'm on 3 somehow, but it should be 4. And this is planning for good meals weekly. And here's the thing, we set these big goals, they really pull us forward. Then each month, we make it a little bit easier on ourselves to make these big goals happen. But the real work is really each week. And here's why. I feel like anyone can do something for 7 days. And if you feel like like something's shifting in those 7 days, you'll have more motivation to keep moving forward, especially if you figure out how to have fun with it. So, for example, a lot of times when people change to eat well, they don't feel good like the first 2 days. But I can say that my weight when I started doing my thing shifted definitely in the first 7 days. My energy shifted definitely in the first 7 days. And a lot of those big health things changed in the first 7 days. For my daughter, her life at school changed after 3 days, and her eczema definitely changed within the first 7 days. So I'm not saying it's all easy, but you can see results. So look for results. And in 7 days, you can sort of have fun with something. And it's a tangible amount of time to look forward. So I love the idea of a weekly wellness experiment. And this is just what you're going to try out for the week that gets you closer to both your monthly, your yearly, and your sort of high level goal. So, if your goal is, your big why is that you're going to lose weight, and you choose that you don't want to have gluten or dairy, but that feels totally overwhelming to you to do all at once. So maybe for one week you try what the gluten's like. And then the next week you choose what the dairy's like. And it's not like on the second week you necessarily have to add back in the gluten, but you could. See how you feel. But it just gives you those building blocks to really focus on one thing and create habits around that one thing and not feel overwhelmed by the 20,000 things that you might feel like you have to do to be healthy. And here's the deal, as you get healthier and healthier, it very well might be that you do those 21,000 things to be healthy, but they won't feel like work because they'll be habits. So remember, every week, just choose that one thing you're working on. It could be simple. It could be that you're going to get an extra hour of sleep, or that you're going to drink an extra glass of water, or that you're going to try one new fruit or vegetable. It doesn't have to be taking out gluten or sugar or dairy. It doesn't have to be big. It can be big, but it can also be little. And everything that keeps us moving forward gives us that momentum that is going to land us at our best year ever. So, the one I want to share with you now is actually one of my favorites, and that's to categorize your meals. So, this has a really big impact on a family because it makes mom's life so much easier. And it also gives the opportunity, especially for a picky eater, but really for any kid, to really start to love new foods. Because it's hard when all these new things get introduced for a lot of kids. And then on top of that, that we're not always happy when we're making dinner and we're not always sure what's for dinner. So there's a lot of uncertainty with it. All these emotional aspects just sort of get under a child and create the space for them to complain and say they don't like it and really be picky. And this little tool can make huge headway in your family around that. So here's what I like to do. I like to map out like a category for each meal of the day for each day of the week. So here I've shown you 5. Sometimes we're a little looser on the weekends, but at the very beginning I actually mapped out everything, but I'm going to share with you these 5. So breakfast, you might have a porridge day, you might have a granola day, a fruit day, a smoothie day, a yogurt day. You're going to pick like porridge day is on Monday, granola day is on Tuesday. Now, I want you to pick this based on your schedule. Like oatmeal takes longer to cook. So if you've, gone out for a run in the morning or everyone's sleeping a little late, porridge day probably isn't your day, whereas granola day might be already made and all you have to do is pour some nut milk over it or, eat it with a fruit um, bowl and you've got a meal in 4 seconds or less. So you need to think about your overarching schedule and, when kids are tireder and when you feel like you have more time in the morning and more energy in the morning, and base it a little bit on that. Lunch, some of my favorites are a leftover day, right? That's easy. You've already made it for dinner. A salad day, a dip day, sort of hummus, crackers, veggies, a sandwich day, and a wrap day. And I have lots of ideas for how to really think outside the box with all these, and everything I've mentioned here can definitely be gluten-free, dairy-free, and plant-based. Dinner. You can have a bean day, a kids cook day, which is so great to have regularly so that you're actually creating kids who can make healthy meals when they're older. Rice bowl day is one of my favorites, especially for picky kids. It's my favorite to eat, but also for picky kids because it exposes them to more, yet doesn't necessarily give them pressure to eat it all. And I'll get more into that in a few slides. Soup day, around the world day, and farm to table day. And so one of the things that this does and is it gives kids permission to really know what's going to happen and expect it. And it doesn't mean they have to like it, but there's something in that certainty that it's coming that gives them permission not necessarily complain so much because it's the way it is. I'm not saying they won't complain a little, but it is the way it is. It gives you that firm grounding that it is the way it is. It makes your life easier because instead of perusing the internet for a general recipe, you're at least just looking for a soup, and maybe you have a recipe up your sleeve that you love. And over time, your kids will learn to at least eat, if not love, what you make. I can promise that. And here's the reason why. A lot of psychological studies have pointed to the fact that it takes 7 tries. Sorry, I have to clear my throat. 7 tries to get a child to like a food. But how many of us, like, the first soup time comes and the child doesn't like it, and so we just move on? We don't try soup again, at least for months, because why would we want that tantrum again, especially if grandma's over, right? But if we keep at it week after week, which we do when we have this rhythm, this schedule, then it gives them permission to, say ew the first time and like it a little bit more the second time and take 5 bites the next time and so on and so forth. All right, so I just want to give you some examples. Porridge day. And I just want to show you that porridge day doesn't mean you're eating the same thing every Monday. There's so many different kinds of gluten-free grains. There's oats, there's quinoa, there's millet, there's buckwheat, there's corn, and I'm sure there's others that I haven't mentioned. And then there's these toppings. There's fresh fruits. Imagine how many different fresh fruits there are. There's all the variety of dried fruits. There's superfoods that can be sprinkled on. There's nuts, there's seeds, and there's tons of different natural sweeteners. So I just want you to have that in mind, that it can be so different and so evolving when you think of what all those combinations are. So here's just a few examples. I mean, they don't look that different, but I can promise you they taste a lot different. Dip day, same thing. So you can use hummus for sure. That's easy enough to buy. There's lots of recipes within our programs and some on our site for just different variations of dips that have involved different kinds of beans and nuts and seeds. So you can start making different kinds of dips for sure. Most dips are filled with protein. Um, and there's so many dips that are dairy free even and gluten free, even though a lot of the ones that one might find in the middle of a grocery store are not. I remember very fondly when I was little taking a package of onion soup and putting it with sour cream, which, yeah, not so healthy. But anyway, I digress. And then there's so many different kinds of veggies. You can cut up carrots, you can try broccoli, celery, cucumber, lettuce, romaine so it's crunchy, grape tomatoes, green beans, kale chips, rice crackers, any kind of gluten crackers. There's so many rice crackers. I already said that, but like the big ones are like the little ones. There's just so many different things that you could dip in this dip, and so that's, an endless supply of dip days. And I admit this is a day that sometimes I send to school more than once a week at this point. All right, and then rice bowl day. So as you know, I shared that this is one of my favorites, and this is why. It really relates to the photo in the top left. Um, and that is that how I serve it is I put lots of little bowls on the table and I let everybody serve their own. So, for example, mine and my 12-year-old, we like everything together. So we just kind of all mix it together. One child likes the squash on top, so she'll put that. And then one of my children at one point didn't even like the rice and the chickpeas together, so she separated that out on a plate. As long as they're eating it and they're really paying attention to the rainbow, I am okay with that. But it's been a progression. And this photo was actually taken a while ago, so I have to say, even the daughter who put everything separate has definitely progressed in how she eats it all together since then. And then I just want to show you how many variations there are of this. And this is the other thing that I will definitely send you if you send me an email, info@plansimplemeals.com. I will send you back a rice bowl thing for your fridge and some recipes that you can use this weekend. All right, you guys, it's time to get organized. I want you to make a grid, take out a piece of paper, and categorize your meals. And don't worry about this lasting forever. You can revisit it, you can change it around. Um, I I recommend you finding something that fits your schedule pretty well and sticking with it for a bit so you actually have that instance of, Tuesday is taco day and Thursday is soup day or whatever it looks like in your life. But if it takes you a few weeks to find that stride, that's definitely okay because you want it to fit into your life. You want this rhythm to be just that, rhythmic in your life. All right, that number thing again. So this is number 5, which is doable days. So this is one of my favorite things to share. So there's a lot of aspects to a doable day, and we actually have a membership platform where there's lots of little classes on all the things from marvelous months to weekly wellness, um, weekly wellness experiments to this, to your doable days. And so this is just one example. And so what I would say is to make days feel doable, it's just a matter of focusing on what matters most first. And some would say get it over with. I don't think I would say that because it's the thing that you know is going to serve you. But so start by focusing on you. So, as a mom, as a busy mom, we spend so much time focusing on everybody else. And sometimes that depletes us. And sometimes it's this role of all these meals we have to make, which is what's depleting us. So, really focus on yourself. And one of the best ways to do that, I have so many ways to do that, but one of my favorite ways to do that is to start each day with a green smoothie so that you are starting your day with so many fruits and vegetables that you are just set up for success. So that is my favorite strategy for doable days. And if you, in your weekly plan for them, and you have everything in the fridge, then literally they take not even 4 minutes to make, including probably washing the blender. So do that if you feel called. And after you finish focusing on yourself, and there's a little bit more to that, but this is the thing I'm going to share with you today. Move on to your experiment. So, what is it that you're experimenting this week? Is it that you're experimenting with gluten? Is it that you're experimenting with more water? Whatever it is, like, is it that you're experimenting with, cooking better dinners for your whole family? Whatever it is, focus on that first thing in the morning. It doesn't mean that you make dinner first thing in the morning, but at least have a plan, know what's happening. Put some time and energy into it so that it will happen throughout the day and so that you can really make it happen in a way that feels doable, because that's the whole point of a doable day. So to take action, I want you to add this one thing to your morning routine. You're going to have the smoothies, and then I want you to write your dinner on a sticky note because no matter what, you're going to have to pull together dinner. And I want you to know what that is before you walk out of the house to school or to work or wherever it is that you go in the morning. I want you to write what's for dinner on a sticky note. And this sounds really silly and whatever, but there's something about this act that it just causes you to be like, oh, you know, we're going to have this for dinner tonight. Do I have all the ingredients in the fridge? So then when you're out at a great time, you can get the things that you're missing. Or maybe you have everything, but you know that you're going to be running in really late into the house. So in that case, you can um, chop an onion first thing in the morning and have it ready. It just puts things in motion in a way that even if you know what it is in your head, it gives you more permission to change your mind. This is what's for dinner. And if you're having a weird day, like someone's sick or whatnot, then it gives you, chance to ramp up for that. All right, you guys, I want you to think, why did you show up today? I should have asked you that at the beginning of the webinar. But why did you show up today? What is it that you wanted out of this? Did you get some of that out of this? And are you ready to take action? And if you're going to get the recording so you can go back and, stop things and take action on all those 5 points. So here's the deal. This healthy lifestyle thing, it can be simple, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's always easy. And that's why those first 2 points, the real first 2 points, are so important because we need that bigger goal. We need that bigger why to pull us forward when it's not easy. Because it can be simple if we're having these plans, if we know what's for dinner every day, if we're creating our days to make those things happen. So I have created this thing that I'm calling the Plan Simple Meals Lab. And it takes a lot of the structure of what I showed you today, and it has just tons of content sort of in university style. So you always have classes that you can take. So it's divided actually into sections so that you can really focus on your long-term goals. You can create marvelous months. You can find the weekly wellness experiment that speaks most to you. That's actually the bulk of the lab is, we're going to launch with about 25 different weekly wellness experiments, and we're going to grow over the course of the year to about 100. And what a weekly wellness experiment is it's just a 7-minute audio that you can listen to on your walk, in the carpool line, wherever you are. It's a 7-minute audio that just gives you a focus for the week, whether it be about dairy or gluten or water or sleep, whatever it is, it gives you a focus and a structure and some ideas for how to make that happen. And then, depending on what your weekly wellness experiment is, there might be worksheets or recipes that go with it so that you're fully supported, and lots of checklists actually, so that you can print them out and you're supported to get through your week in an easy and doable way. And then there's also obviously a section called doable days, and I'll get more into that in a minute, but that's the gist of the lab. So simply put, the membership platform, the lab, it will give you the tools to make healthy meals a fun reality 365 days a year. And that's what I'm most excited about. So here's what you get. You get access to this amazing collection of classes that I told you about. They're short, they come with worksheets and checklists, and you will start with your best year ever. You'll consider your marvelous month on the 30th of every month. We'll remind you about that. You'll make a habit of diving into your weekly wellness experiments. The other cool part, so you have all this content, but I don't want to just throw content. I want you to feel supported. So you will always feel supported. And you need this because even though you might feel immediate change when you put some of these things into action, you're still, part of a family, and kids go through phases, and moms get off track, and kids get sick, and vacations happen. We're always getting curveballs. So each month there'll be a live teaching call, a live Q&A, and every day you can lean on our community of moms and me, because we'll be in this private members only Facebook group together. And then we're going to have challenges from time to time. And this is so, each week we could all choose a different wellness experiment. But every once in a while, I want us all to be doing the same thing, or if it speaks to you, that same thing. So there might be a lunch challenge or a self-care challenge or whatever it might be. And this is really going to build momentum. And then from time to time, there'll definitely be bonus master classes from other people who know more about other topics that affect all this than I do. So, exercise is one that I know is coming up pretty quickly, and parenting, and sort of some of the more scientific stuff around like why we can eat what food we can eat, our relationships, all these things that play a big part in our family life. And then you'll also get discounts on anything else we do. And our vision is definitely to have this amazing, vibrant community of healthy moms. And so now it's online, but in the future, in the very near future, actually, it's going to be in person too. And so when those things come up, I would love to meet everybody. So that was kind of like what you get. And but here's the benefits. The benefit is that you'll get answers. There's so much information on the internet. There's so much great information on the internet. But I don't want you don't need to be spending all that time out there. And it's so much easier to ask questions and get them answered either by me or these fabulous groups of moms who have so many answers. We have so many between us, we have so many answers. And sometimes we get these diagnoses from healthcare providers and teachers, and they tell us what to do, but then they kind of leave us hanging, and you're stuck with the day to day. So that's why this real time support is kind of helpful. And you'll no longer struggle to stay consistent. So how often have you started something only for like a school vacation or a grandparent with a lollipop or a sick day or, a 2-year-old, whatever it is, these things just throw us off our path and then it's harder to get back. But you'll have the accountability not to get off your path for that long. So, as a result, old patterns will hopefully fall by the wayside. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that focusing on this thing for a week, weeks at a time, it will really help take you into action instead of in your head and in wishing. You're really going to be taking action. Even if they're little actions, they're going to make a big impact. And if you do a lot of the food experiments, your cravings are literally going to change. So many people say, don't you feel deprived when you walk into a party or, you know, are offered a piece of cake or wherever it is? And the truth is that I don't, because I think part of that is that my cravings have changed and that I really feel like I'm serving my body. And I do indulge and I do enjoy amazing things, but they're just a little bit different. And you'll taste some of them. So I'm excited about that. And hopefully it will save time and just really simplify your life. So there's two great ways to sign up. I am offering beta pricing right now. I admit that, I have all this content. It's been fun. It's been a little bit of a technical challenge, but we're pulling it together. It's been amazing, amazing process. Um, it's going to take a minute to onboard people into the private Facebook group and all that. And I don't want anyone to feel frustrated or like they're wasting their money. So this is what I'm offering right now. I'm not sure how long this is going to last, but this window will definitely close. So right now, a monthly membership is $20 a month. And for $20 a month, you'll get access to the Plan Simple Meals Lab subscription to the whole platform. And you can definitely just cancel at any time. You just have to tell us before your credit card's charged, and we will cancel and we won't charge you for the next month. The best deal, and what I'm hoping people will hop on, is the yearly membership, which right now is $200 a year. And with the annual membership, you obviously, money wise, get 2 months free. Plus, you're going to get a masterclass on cleaning out your pantry. Plus, I haven't even written this out. I'm just telling you, if you're actually listening to this, that because this is really the beta, if you get the yearly, you actually have lifetime access. So this is definitely only true right now. And in some point in April, that's going to go away. But for right now, I just don't want anyone to be frustrated like they've paid for a year and their year started. And it's amazing. You can jump right in and get started and start hearing content. And if you just even take action on what you've heard in this free webinar, you will start to experience changes. You got to do a little bit of work, but I'm hoping it's fun work. And so you can have that forever. And as I said, I've been on this journey for 7 years and it's still fun. It's still interesting and it still comes with its challenges. Every phase is different. Now I'm getting into the preteen times, and that comes with its own thing. I still have a first grader too. So, but I feel a little bit more on top of those changes. And then every child is different. So so I feel like this is really a lifetime thing, and I don't want that to overwhelm you, but I really want it to serve you. So here is how you can sign up. Um, you can go to the it's just plansimplemealslab.com/go. So plansimplemealslab.com/go. And on that page, you will get a full-on sales page that talks even more detail about the lab and gives you the opportunity to sign up. And I am so looking forward to seeing people on the other side. Here's some things that people have said after working through some of this content. So I just want to say that I admit I was skeptical that adding anything to my schedule was actually doable. I'm happy to report that these are truly manageable tasks. Thank you for being true to your word. That's from Heather, who is a mom of three. And then Star, who's also a mom of three, said, for weeks I've been weighing myself daily, no movement. At this time, I think she actually had like a newborn baby. No movement in weeks. And this week she lost 2.5 pounds, and she's certain this is because of, taking one small doable step at a time. And then Elizabeth, who's a busy mom of I'm not sure how many, said, I never thought I would be cutting out all the foods that I suggested, but here I am about 5 days into clean eating, and I already notice a huge difference in my mood and general well being. So thank you for making a plan that starts small. It really allows you to grow into a lifestyle change as opposed to making aggressive changes that always have led to failure. So I thank all those women. They've all been amazing people in my program. And I got a few questions, so I just thought I'd answer them quickly, and then I'm going to stop the recording and I'll take live questions. So the first question that I got was, the year thing. That just feels like a really long time. And here's what I have to say about that. I do have a 6 week program that people still have access to, but I've kind of taken off the shelves because I'm revamping it a little bit. And it's great. It's fabulous. If you have 6 weeks, it really takes you deep. But what I found is that after the 6 weeks, people always asked if they could have more. And so for a while, what I did was I just let people in for the next time it ran live, and that has served me fine. But over time, that's a little bit of a logistical nightmare. And I will be having these live events, which sort of serve that same purpose of a 6 week course, but really happen over the course of 3 days. But to me, a year is just more realistic because in a year, so much changes. Seasons change, every holiday happens, school happens, vacation happens. Kids grow, we get sick, we're well, we travel. There's just all these situations, and the lab is going to talk to all those situations. And when we don't have a class on a certain situation, we can definitely start a conversation about that situation. And whenever I see conversations coming up a lot, I will just either myself create a class about it or find an expert to do that if I can't answer those questions. So the idea is that we're really um, creating solutions for every situation. So, that's cool. And then another question I got was just seeing what it looks like on the inside. And on the sales page, there is going to be a video that takes you through what that looks like. We're just in the course of getting that up and running right now, so you can tune in the next, definitely by April and be able to see that. So then you can sort of see what it looks like on the inside. A section that I haven't spoken about, I don't think in this webinar, is that there's a holiday section. So there's quick little classes or recordings or audios with workbooks about planning a birthday party, about the December holidays, about Halloween, about Thanksgiving if you're in the US. So hopefully that about weekends, weekends away, about traveling. There's little courses about all those different scenarios that you might run into. And as I said, if we run into ones that I have not even thought of, we will create those. That's the whole point of this lab. It's all one big fun experiment that we're on together. There's definitely ample content. Like almost too much, which is why I've broken it down into like what you would focus on each week, and you will get through it and you will change. So I am going to stop the recording and take live questions. So if any of you are listening to this after this is live, thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the lab.